Anderson.
And I'm Matt Gross.
And this is Post-Race Purgatory, where we judge all things NASCAR. Just finishing up the race today at Vegas.
Yeah, it was a good finish to a race that had a lot of quirky things going on. So I kind of describe it as quirky, from the weather to some of NASCAR's calls early on, to some pit strategy at the end of the race, to some great moves. A lot of little things going on. Ultimately, Brad Keselowski prevailing.
Yes, the Penske car is having a 1-2 finish. Very great package. Clearly that they had the best cars of the race, but we did have an exciting finish to the end of the race because particularly not on that last restart, but what we saw for both the last run, but the run before that was Kyle Busch making an unbelievable move.
Yeah, so this is the second to last restart with about 40 laps to go in the race. You had Kyle Busch from the sixth position getting to the lead in less than a lap, making a brilliant move to the outside of Jimmy Johnson, making it stick, and then getting a run down the back
on the
straightaway
inside,
and diving below both the Penske cars, and making what would have been a spectacular race-winning move if he had been able to make it hold. Now, at the end of the day, he complained about at the end of the race about how he felt like the car just went away, it got extremely tight, like he felt like the right front tire might have been coming apart. I just don't think his car was as good as the Penske cars or Jimmy Johnson. I just think that he almost stole a race. I think the fact that I don't think his car should have been up and lead. I think he just restarted everybody to the point where he almost stole a race. It was
such a spectacular move. You could actually hear the crowd cheering, and that you have to give that credit because
it's a little surprising, isn't it?
Kyle Busch isn't the most popular driver out there, but it was an unbelievable move. It was good racing, and it was his hometown.
And I think that at this point, there's such a high disdain level for the Penske cars that they probably were happy to see him beating them at that point. But it ultimately did not work out that well. One other thing you want to talk about here, too, is last week we talked about how good Chad Knaus is, obviously.
Yes.
Rodney Childers probably lost that race more than Knaus won it. But still a great move by Knaus to bring Jimmy in early. This week, another one of those situations where a good move that was a big part in winning the race was Paul Wolfe keeping Brad Keselowski out there to regain the track position they had lost from an earlier pit road penalty. That turned out to be very, very important. Got a little bit lucky. With the caution, but it was a good gamble because I don't think Keselowski wins that race if he comes in and follows suit.
That's what we see a lot with Paul Wolfe. While, yes, he does need some luck on his calls, he doesn't need an overwhelmingly amount because Paul Wolfe is one of those crew chiefs that knows when to roll the dice.
Yes, he makes calculated gambles.
He is an excellent crew chief. I actually rank him as my second favorite crew chief, right below Chad Knaus.
Oh, and he might, he is actually, I think, probably even with Knaus when it comes to when to gamble, when to for pit strategy. Knaus is the total package. He's got everything going on. But man, Paul Wolfe just knows. Say, man, when I got a 10th place car, 8th place car, or even today, he had better than that.
He had better, but he said, I need the track position back because we lost it.
When you need to regain something like that, he knows when to strike. And how many times do you see Keselowski in this number 2 team on a totally different strategy than the leaders.
Than everyone else.
And it ends up working out. And it ends up working out.
Paul Wolfe has a very creative way at looking at things. He knows where to roll the dice. And it is definitely something that played a factor in it today. Definitely the setup of the Penske's car. So that was another factor. And then Keselowski just getting it done. Yep. Once he finally made it past his teammate, which was actually what was holding up the process the longest, he was able to get by Kyle Busch pretty easily. We saw that Kyle Busch had already given everything he had and had no chance against Brad.
So one of the other things we want to talk about here today is the weather. Just one of the wildest days.
Things going on in this weather.
You had the tops of the pit boxes blowing off. You had the car covers coming off with people. You had umbrellas unflapping. You had fans taking cover. You had all kinds of weird things happen. This was just in the pre-race before you had a little shower come through that delayed the race. And then you had the extreme wind assisting cars down the back straightaway. They were entering turn 3 at the fastest speeds they had been all week because of it.
Because of the wind, which was playing a speed factor in there.
So you had that going on. And then you had a sandstorm, which is rare even though Vegas in the desert, you don't get that many of sandstorms like that.
And they actually had to leave the caution out a little bit longer because at some point the visibility was so bad.
I wonder if people at the race, and if you were at the race, you could comment on this. If you could see the cars in the back straightaway from the front straightaway, because even these cameras, which were much closer than that, There was a point for a couple laps there after a restart where you
dulled
literally
colors,
could not, you could not see some of the cars because it got so wild there. And then in between the start of the race, when you had all this wind and this sandstorm about 2/3 of the way through the race, there was blue sky. It was like
there was a beautiful
there was
day
a point in the middle.
Point where you would have never known if you just turned on the race for a few laps.
So it was just a very strange day weather-wise for weather that did not necessarily cancel the race. It delayed it briefly.
Last week, NASCAR, we gave you credit.
For once, NASCAR didn't throw a debris caution every 50, 60 laps.
Well, NASCAR, I wish we could say we could give you credit again.
Yeah, this race was just a joke in the first half. It really was. I mean, if you looked at nothing, this is one of those things where nothing that really happened in the first half of the race mattered because they continue to reset the field with their many ways that they bring out bogus caution.
Absolutely.
First, they had the mandatory caution, lap 30, which saved a bunch of cars from coming lap down.
Can we please just take a moment before we just glaze over this? Because this is a problem of an ongoing problem. We need to see how the tires handle. Tires are not something that's an issue. It was not an issue today. You have 30 laps. If you need to figure it out, you should go into pit. This should be part of the strategy. I do not see a reason, unless there are outrageous circumstances, why we need to have
I can see it 1 or 2 races a year. It's probably at about 60% of the race.
And that is so
and if you want,
annoying.
And you know, if you want the first run to be shorter, you know what you do? You tell them they can only fill the fuel up with, say you fill the car up with 1 can of fuel instead of 2 to start the race. They have to be on pit road faster.
That would be great.
You know, instead of just because what you do is you make the first 30 laps of the race
short.
Irrelevant. Well, you make it irrelevant because anybody who misses the handle almost goes a lap down. Who cares? Because they're going to be back on the lead lap. Then you're going to throw more debris. There was not a real caution until Kyle Larson got in the wall when he got loose right behind AJ Allmendinger. And quite frankly, I think this race would have been more interesting in the first half if it was allowed to play out a little better.
Naturally. I totally agree with this. It was so annoying to see these cautions come out for no reason, completely unnecessary.
And here's how you know it was just a farce, the whole thing. You had the Fox cameras picking up a water bottle near the start-finish line, which at first they were saying as if that was the debris because they couldn't find the debris on the top because either it wasn't there or it was so small it really didn't need to bring out a caution.
And then the next debris caution, they just didn't even bother giving us a reason or showing anything. So bravo, that is terrible.
And the other thing within that caution that was important, just as an aside, as Jeff Gordon correctly pointed out, why are people allowed to throw their water bottles out the window? Look, why can't they just either keep it in the car or not? Either keep it in the car or be penalized if they throw it out the window.
Doing it.
Why do you have to have this stuff being thrown out the window and allow that to even potentially play a factor in the race?
We know how trigger-happy NASCAR is with throwing these cautions. This should not be a contributing factor.
It's almost like they want an excuse to throw it. And this is why I'm going to make NASCAR's BS debris cautions my purgatory penalty of the race. It simply was sinful.
Absolutely despicable to see that type of stuff happen. I had a little bit of controversy. I gotta agree with you. I'm throwing the debris BS cautions into that box with you. Really no discussion. But I do have a nominee that I would like to point out because I would like to point out there for all of our Chase Elliott fans who saw him wreck today. I'm not throwing Chase in. Okay, yes. Could he have done a better job to avoid Matt Kenseth on
You'll
that
miss
fallback?
that next time if he gets
yes,
that happen.
But that is a learning experience for a rookie. What I want to point out was, why was Chase back there to begin with? And that is because of the brilliant, not so brilliant call by Alan Gustafson, who decided to put 4 tires on that run. Now, I don't have a breakdown of what every single car did, but we saw the top 12 of the drivers who hit it.
On Fox's graphic, everybody in the top 10 who came out was 2 tires. And 3 cars.
Not mentioning the 3 that took
no tires because they stayed out
altogether. But
and we just talked about how they were 3 of the top 5, so we know that was the right move.
Alan thought it'd be a great idea to pull in for 4 tires, which put Chase all the way back
into
there,
the middle of the hornet's
which
nest.
put him into a position to be caught up into a wreck. If he did not make that call, Chase would have never been put into that position.
Yeah, he would have been a couple cars.
Probably would have been able to get a top 7 because he was doing well that entire
He ran about
race.
7 most of the day.
Not quite, because I don't think he had a winning car, and I think this was a good learning experience. I'm still going to give this to NASCAR because you've been making this mistake for years with throwing these BS cautions. This is not a new thing. But Alan, you came close today.
Well, it hasn't been, to be fair, this is not exactly a new thing for Alan Gustafson either. He has, under the radar, made some very, very poor calls. Cost Gordon a lot of spots in a lot of races over the last 2 or 3 years of his career. And he continued to do it today, where, like you said, he was pretty much the only driver of significance to take 4 tires at the end. And I'm not talking about somebody who was running 16th, 17th anyway. He took, of the top 10 drivers, he took a top 10 car and put it in a position that it simply did not need to be at the end of that race.
And what bothers me so much about these decisions is when it's not even like we're taking a risky gamble or something here. No,
everybody else in the 2-tire boat.
And you're not paying attention to how the race is running, how tires are handling on this track to realize you only need 2 tires.
You pretty much had the vast majority of the field was in the 2-tire boat. You had a few people who took a little bit of a gamble and were smart in the Penske cars and Austin Dillon to take a calculated gamble, stay out, hope they get a caution, and get track position. And then in this other boat, you had Gustafson taking 4 tires. The only one doing that with that few laps to go and with that many good cars in front of him in the past. All right, well, that is going to just about do it for today's edition of Post-Race Purgatory. If you have any comments on Keselowski winning, on Kyle Busch's move, on the weather, on Gibbs versus Penske versus Hendrick, we got one of each for a win for each of those organizations.
Are we coming back to Phoenix next week? Do you think, because Kevin Harvick's the favorite there, could we have a 4th team victory next week?
Yes, that may be the only time you take one team over the entire field in NASCAR. We want to hear all about that in your comments. So subscribe to Post Race Purgatory on Twitter, and we will see you next week.